I see it much more abstracted, and I see that every conversation is by design. And all of these activities, all these frameworks, all these structures really help us design conversations, design methodologies for making decisions, cultivating input and collaboration. And I'm finding that this can be morphed and used in so many different ways. And obviously it started with products and designing creative, but I'm getting pulled in all sorts of different directions in my company to use these skills and apply it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and I mean, from this, so Andy's story is it's something that I hear a lot from different people, depending on what they're coming to the event for. So usually the common thread is like, I've done a masterclass or I've done some formal training around like design sprints, and I'm looking to take the next level, like either to sell them or to make them part of a process, or to be somebody of authority in my workplace or someone else where I want to kind of advocate or evangelize this. So the notion is that by kind of getting involved with this, you're taking what you've watched in videos or in practice and kind of applying it in a different way. So some folks will take a wait and see approach and just kind of observe, but kind of get involved where it makes sense to. Or there are people that just want to jump into facilitation or co-facilitate with someone like Andy, for example, where Andy's been through this and he kind of knows what he's familiar with and what he likes to do. But the idea is that by the end of it, you'll not only have for this one in particular, you'll have an idea of how to set things up and properly structure one. And then the execution that happens that third week in October will kind of say, okay, after you prepared everything the way you're intended to do, here's the flavor of virtual sprints that I recommend after going through like a ton of them. And then the final week after that is just basically iteration sprints and other things you can do to kind of take the results from that week and further them along. The difference this time around with GVDS 5 is that we're introducing something calling the Dash, which is the counterpart to the design sprint. And I'll go on a little bit of a tangent here slightly. So in previous events, we had a lot of people that wanted to take their ideas that they had formulated in the design sprint and take them to the next level, say like, oh, this is fantastic. This really has potential in the marketplace. Let's take some time to actually build this out, see what people think, interview them, and so on. Problem is that real life kind of got in the way, in that you had a lot of other things you had to kind of deal with, that you had to, like your family, your workplace, everything else, and you still made time for it. But usually after a month, things faded no matter how much time you put into it. The Dash is meant to kind of say, okay, let's start from the perspective of just figuring out how we're going to test the market with our idea. We're still going to work on it, but we're going to go fast and cheap and see if the intended audiences that we're building this for really do react to it. They say, oh, this is something I'm either going to give an email to, sign up for a webinar, or give some money to give some skin in the game on their part to say, this is what I'm really interested in. So between those two, the GVDS or the virtual design sprints are going to be simulated, meaning they're going to be problems and big ideas and challenges that are going to inform and learn everyone. Whereas the Dash, for those that are entrepreneurial or are not afraid of failure, can go in and say, okay, here's the experiment. Here's where I think it'll work. Let's run a couple experiments through the week, see what happens. And the idea is that in that iteration week, they can continue to do experiments, or they can prepare for the showcase, which is the last unofficial week where they say, okay, we thought that this particular product that we have for eliminating smoke in the atmosphere would work. Here's what we tested. Here's what we found out. But people can take that experimentation and they can make a pitch. They can do whatever they like because there's rationale to kind of move it forward. Whereas the design sprint was a neat idea with a lot of opinions, but not really any skin in the game for people that are in the marketplace. So to summarize, the original intent of the GVDS was to give people who had masterclass certificates or had read the Blue Book and wanted to know more about it to do a learn by doing approach and understand the nuances of having to do this online. And then we're adding into 5 the ability to take potential ideas and target certain audiences and test them in the marketplace to see if they're valid or if they're going to fly. 95% of the time won't be the case, but at least you'll go through the motions to understand what it's all about. Does that make more sense, Jen?
Makes sense, yeah.
And do tell me when I'm talking too much, because I don't, I tend to be, Andy's witness to this. I'll be like, and there's this, and there's this. It's like I'm in a cake shop and I want you to show all the beautiful cakes. If you've got any kind of dairy restrictions, you go over here, and I have a bad accent, and here's over this and this. So I tend to do that sometimes. Hi, Bree.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hello. It turns out it's not at 5 p.m. It's at 8 a.m. So I can come. Yeah.
That works. Love the glasses, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. One of many that I own. I like collect fun glasses. I like them.
Cool. So, Bree, you were also in Dallas proper, or at least in the Texas area, and you know Andy, correct?
No,
we've never met.
Oh,
I know Ken Soto.
Yes,
that's
Ken.
it. That's the connection.
Ken
okay.
Actually did some work with Freshform out of San Francisco for our web redesign project a few years ago. So we kind of became friends there.
Okay.
And I'm from College Station, so it's about 4 hours from Dallas.
Okay. Is that north, south, west, east? Is that more south?
South, yeah. South.
Okay.
It's kind of like, so the triangle, Dallas, Houston, Austin, College Station's like right in the middle.
Got it. So it's something you pass. You pass when you're going down to make a field trip to Houston. Like if you're taking like a road trip.
Yeah, you don't have to, but it's easier for me to get to all those places. Like you don't have to come to me because at one point they were thinking about working on like a high speed rail to go from all three of the metro areas and San Antonio as well. But I don't know what's going on with that. Like it was the Texas Transportation Institute at A&M that was working on it. So
there's probably they were concerned they were going to hit some wild pickup trucks. You know, they're always kind of going into
right.
the countryside, kind of going over things, and every so often there may be a train that just hits one. You know.
Well, I-10 is a huge shipping corridor. Not shipping, sorry, trucking corridor, and so that could actually be part of the problem.
Could possibly
different
be.
Trucks, but you know.
So Bree, what are you looking to get out of this? I mean, you're kind of signed up. Well, you are signed up, and you're looking forward to what's coming next. But what are some of the top things that you, when this is all said and done, you really want to be able to have in your back pocket?
Well, a big thing is I want to observe. I want to watch the language. I mean, of course I want to participate. I'm a designer, so definitely want to get in and get my hands dirty. And I'm also like a bit of a, I don't know if dilettante's the right word, but I'm a jump in with both feet kind of prototyper kind of person. Like I taught myself 3D printing at the beginning of this year. Anyway, I really want to observe. I want to watch the sprints go on I've been there trying to facilitate them in a place where nobody is really receptive or open or knowledgeable about them. And so I'm probably doing that in a vacuum, and I'd like to kind of see others with more experience and pick up. I don't know what the tangible, outcomes from that would be other than just learning a lot. Okay. So, I'd love to have something to put into my portfolio because ultimately systems design and design thinking and operations and culture change and shift is one of my, favorite things in the world. So, I'd love to have something to show for that, but I don't know exactly what that looks like.
So one of the things I'm going to do is in the chat, I'm going to put a link to the Gvds showcase recordings that we've done in the past. That will kind of illustrate some of the work that the teams have done and some of the outputs that they've had. It'll give you an idea of the process that's kind of worked through things. Is Jan still here? Oh yeah, he's here. He just has his mic off. Jan, this is something that you may want to see as well. Let me find out where is my chat?
I love service design so much, like process design. Dr. Leonard Berry at Texas A&M, he wrote "Discovering the Soul of Service," and he's like the serve qual king. One of my colleagues at the business school, and I just want to like absorb him by osmosis.
Just kind of be around him and see what he does.
Exactly.
So the link that I provided in chat is basically a list of, I would say, 19 videos that have been done over the past 2 events. And they include all sorts of teams and their themes and what they did. So we're talking about the pandemic homeless plan. There was one for finding your tribe, which is a couple of teams that kind of did it. And then they were the older ones, like the Plago customer returns. So these are all kind of explorations that the different teams have done, both smaller teams and larger teams. I think Andy's interspersed in there, probably has 2 or 3 of them. But the idea is that we would give the teams to the ability to showcase what they've done for that particular week, or over a case of 2 weeks. So they had some sort of artifact at the end as a team that they could fall back to and point to. But then as a designer, the idea is that you're creating artifacts that you can put in your portfolio, that you can tell a story, that you would have something to kind of showcase for yourself, to prospective employers and to other people that you know. So that's kind of like that entire list will give you a kind of a list of what people have done in the past.
Cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
I would add in there too, when you're getting into design sprints, a design sprint that proves the product not viable can be just as big a success as one that does, that comes up with something, right? So I think there's the artifacts can at first you kind of sitting going, well, why would I promote the fact that we did all this work and found that maybe this product, in its current state was maybe not something that was viable or something you proceed with. But in the business world, that can be hugely valuable because you got to that decision point extremely fast versus waiting months on end to find out that maybe this just wasn't a good idea. So the portfolio pieces can range, and the story and the narrative around them, to me, is what is most powerful, and the experiences that you drew from it.
I'm really interested in the gap between, killing off something that should be killed off and selling that to bosses and stakeholders who may not understand the fact that we're sinking time and money now to avoid disaster later, and presenting that in a good way. Because I find over the course of design sprints, design projects, that people get really impatient with the cyclical, side of design, and the learning and growing. They just want this linear timeline. And so fitting this cyclical timeline within the linear, thought processes of others is a big challenge of mine that I've been trying to get my brain around for a while. Yeah.
Jan, same question to you. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you, but
No.
What do you, after this is all said and done, same question to you, is what do you want from this event? I mean, what would be the ideal outcome for you come the end of October after Halloween's done and you're looking into November?
Well, indeed, getting some practical hands-on, some things that I can, I've now followed the training online, but if you do something in real, to get some real hands-on, it will give me a better feeling than I have now. It will give me more confidence, I think. Yeah, and it will give me a way to get started with this with a real client. Of course, I will also be honest to this client that it will be my first design sprint, so that they understand it as well, that it cannot go as perfect as, for example, the 10 sprint that you will be doing. Yeah. And it will also be very nice. I heard now about this. I'm checking the cases. Will be nice to have something in a portfolio as well. Will be helpful to show. Yeah.
Cool. And part of this event, and I've done a little bit of it in Gvds 4, but 5 it's going to be up front, is how to basically leverage social media for what you're doing in this. Some people, it's a natural kind of extension of it, but others just don't know where to start, or they're not comfortable with it. But in actuality, once you go through the motions, it's actually quite simple. You don't need to post like 10 times a day, but with this event, it is helpful to kind of get people aware of what you're doing, because then I'll provide a narrative that if they do a search for Jan Lenartz, or sorry if I didn't say your last name right, but that they do a search for you, they're going to find your curated pieces, whether they're portfolio, your business website, or anything else. But they're also going to search YouTube. They'll search other artifacts, like things on your major social network. Those will pop up as well. So they'll provide a narrative when you're not there about what you've done in terms of your work. Now, for you, if you're very active on social, you're in good place. But it was one of those underlying messages I saw in the last event where it's like, I want to be able to have people see more of my stuff on LinkedIn, but how do I actually do that? What hashtags do I use? What language do I use? Who do I tag? What's right and what's proper? So that there's going to be a little bit of a mix of that in this time around.
Okay, that's good. Well, yeah.
Andy,
Also,
I'd be a dummy if I did not allow you to kind of introduce yourself and what you're all about, rather than just say, this guy I know in Fort Worth just joined the call and he's got a pretty background. So why don't you let people know what you're all about?
Yeah. So, gosh, I always stumble through this. I'm not good at talking about
where
myself.
to begin? There's just so many great things. I can't pick one. Where should I go?
There's only two of us, so don't feel too much pressure.
Oh no. I'm my own worst critic. So I work for a company called Inspirus, and I've been here. Gosh, it is 27 years, which is very unusual for someone to work for one place that long. Yeah, but throughout creative. Well. So it's interesting. I went to design school and did very well there. Came out and started working at this place, and I've done all sorts of things, but they always sort of revolved around product management, either in an informal or formal way. Anywhere from leading IT for the entire company to leading creative to even some operational stuff, but the common thread in all of that was design, right? Because I always approached everything from things don't just happen. There are choices to be made, right? And they need to be evaluated. And to me, that's design, right? You're always trying to identify how to optimize. And so, was it 6-7 years ago, I was exposed to the formal nature of user experience design. And I was like, wow, I've been doing this all along. And, in design school, that just really wasn't a thing. And so I'm like, wow, the dots are really connecting in a big way. And so I got heavy into that and really started asking questions about, what is it? Why is it that this appeals to me? And really spent a lot of time kind of kept asking why. I'd answer the question, ask why. And really what it came down to is I really love working with people to solve problems. I love collaboration. I love that moment where everybody's inputs come together. Everyone has a good voice. You're able to synthesize that information, understand it, and use it to move forward in an efficient way. And really, that's what I really enjoy most about it. And design, the creative part, obviously, is a big piece to that. But so here I am, GVDS 5. Looking forward to another exciting event.
Inspirus. I mean, I guess if I were gonna stay somewhere for 25 years, I'd want it to have that name. Like inspiring, Inspirus. Like I find that is a challenge. I've been at the university in some different roles for 10 years, and so which is I am the ADD poster child, so I'm really surprised that is a thing.
One of the things about being go ahead.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, Inspirus, I didn't tell you what we did, but we are in the employee recognition space. So HRIT, we build software and help organizations enable their employees to recognize each other for the good work they do. We also do service award as well, so milestone experiences and things like that.
Cool. I'm thirsting for folks to talk to and work with in the design realm, you know, just to get more real collaboration. I work in a business school, and so there's lots of like, okay, you go over there and do that. I'm too busy, you know, and I'm really excited to jump in and actually like collaborate on stuff.
I think it's also nice to build up a network with people who do the same. I think it's very important to have a good network. Oh.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a serial networker myself. I'm the guy that goes to events like they would do design sprint meetups. I'm not necessarily interested at all about what's being said or who's talking. If it could be Jake Knapp or anything else, I met him, so I know what he's all about. But I go in there and I look for the mural board or something else that has everyone's LinkedIn kind of thing. And I go, oh, now I have an icebreaker. I have something that I can go straight to them and say, hey, I noticed that you were attending this event and I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. Even if 90% of the time I don't have a lot in common with that person, the thing about LinkedIn is that it allows you to follow your content by default when you add them. So if you're going to be producing at least one piece of content per day or two, there's a good chance that after the algorithm gets done with it, it's going to put in their feed so they can get an idea of what you're about. And then they can go, well, maybe not. Robert's a little bit too talkative or whatever may be the case. But I tend to really take time out to everyone that signs up for Gvds, figure out who's not on my network, send them a small message saying, hey, I noticed you signed up. Thank you. Let's connect. And then that starts the conversation, at least on a very low level. But yeah, Jan, to your point about expanding network, I'm right there. I would say a very proactive stance on kind of doing that. And by the way, you had mentioned that you wanted to kind of like sell the design sprint process, or at least make it part of your business. I put a link into the chat of an article I wrote last year specifically for that, because I was fielding a lot of questions on how to do that because I was doing it at the time. And hopefully that helps give perspective. That's not about the process. It's more about what you bring to the table. Like they're actually buying you and your perspective, and what you're going to, why you're the person over two or three other people that they would choose to kind of get and engage with.
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. Yeah, because the network for me, it's maybe also an opportunity to find. Well, I'm actually also looking for a co-founder to start something up. Will be nice to have a sparring partner to move on things quicker than you would do on your own. Wow.
Yeah. And there's in this network, at least, there's a number of people that have smaller shops that are doing they're putting design sprints out there as something they sell. Sabrina Gorch is the first person I can think of out in Stuttgart, Germany. There's Abel Manangas, and he's currently in the Philippines, and he's somebody that has been doing it for a couple of years now. I think Herman Vergolini is another person that has design sprints as part of his portfolio of things that he offers. But he's very much about human-centered design and selling it down there. And I believe he's in Argentina, I think that's where he's from. So it's just a matter sometimes of just posting and say, hey, I'm looking for someone to either shadow or to talk to about the business of selling design sprints and what they're all about. If you put that in virtual design sprint events, typically you'll get some play. But yeah, that's probably the first place I would go.
Okay.
Another person, Ken Soto. He's doing it in the higher ed realm. I mean, he took his like graphic design work in the higher ed realm and all the contacts he made there to kind of start his own like newsletter sprinty business there. I'm not sure where he's at. I haven't caught up with him in a while, but he was doing some great prototyping and stuff for a while. We did a little collaboration.
Yeah. And on the design side of things with this particular event in the past, usually, and in the design sprint, the way it's kind of architected, there's a disproportionate kind of leaning towards designers to kind of get everything done in a day. But the difference between what's kind of written out in that prototyping stage and what we're doing in the virtual design sprint is that there's a little bit more of an on-ramp to kind of get that done rather than try to get it done in 24 hours, because sometimes it doesn't work out for everyone. So the instructional material that I'll be creating for this particular event around design should basically illustrate that and kind of explain what to expect, so that it's not where everybody dumps all of their work that they've done in 2 or 3 days in the design sprint process. Okay, designer and developer, go ahead and make this prototype and make it sing, because Andy's can relate to this, and that's what happened to him. He had one day to kind of produce everything. He's like, yeah, everyone, I was up all night kind of doing it, but I think we're in a good place. And they were very appreciative of it, but I don't think everyone likes that kind of experience or has time for it. So yeah. I think with this kind of like more holistic approach to kind of teaching the virtual design sprint process in contrast to what we did in May, this should give you enough kind of perspective and set expectations around what you could do that would benefit not only your portfolio and what you want from the event, but also through the process of working with the team.
I'm hoping to pivot my career. Actually, I'm kind of because I'm such a creator, explorer, conqueror. I feel like graphic design has become less of the joy as it used to be, and so I'm really more interested in becoming more of a capital D designer than a lowercase d designer, like designing the third and fourth order design rather than first and second.
So what would you, just to kind of go into that a little bit more, how often do you practice design in some fashion? Either drawing, doodling, kind of doing a little bit of graphic design during Monday through Friday, like for a work week? Is it every day, or is it?
It's my color is my day-long obsession, joy and torment. It's like all of the time. I don't know that. I mean, I'm always designing something, and like right now I'm working on illustrations for a magazine. I'm actually even working on a video as we speak. Like I'm I don't know, like all the time, even when I'm not at work, especially since COVID. So yeah, especially with COVID, everyone's kind of had like a bit of time that they've dedicated to kind of their hobbies as well as their workplace. I'm going to put a name into the chat that you may be interested in kind of checking out. His name's Melvin Thambe. He's down in Houston, Texas. Cool. He's somebody that's been a part of the Gvds and a couple of runs. His wife has her own art business. Their daughter is very much about they learns from both of them. But he's somebody that's basically taken his entire perspective on design and has like made it his centerpiece and does a ton of it. Has a small network of artists that he works with down there. He could be like an example to kind of look at as someone that's kind of taking the full dive and really kind of projects about what he's all about with design is, and the end result is a lot of the things you'll see on that site. Cool. So that's somebody that's kind of gone the full route of where he's going with the designer, but understand that's after like years and years of dedication and work and kind of showcasing what he's all about. Yeah, I mean, my degree's in multimedia and web design from a long time ago, and so like I truly am a multimedia type person. I feel like it's almost the medium is, obviously whatever the user needs, and I'd rather like help find somebody who specializes in that medium rather than be the one to always create in that medium. I mean, I know the language for all these mediums and I understand art direction in those realms, but I'm like I'm almost, when you were talking about a designer doing something overnight, it's kind of a hesitation for me because I'm, I don't know. I feel like I'm not as good at that anymore because I'm so in other realms, like trying to connect people and ideas and mediums and thoughts more than individually creating graphics. Although I said I was just doing illustrations for the magazine. But
so I'll tell you, I'll interrupt you real quick and I'll tell you one thing that I tell everyone, especially in the design realm. The one thing that's counterproductive is when you raise your hand like this and you do a lot of this. is that if you shortcut yourself and basically say like, you know, this is something I do well, I'm not this is just you basically beating yourself up, because I come at it with neutrality. I don't know. I just assume that you're who you are, and that your work will basically suffice to say it. I mean, being the age I am, and people can relate to this, is like you have a long history of failures behind you that you don't necessarily like put out there, but it basically you learn from. But it humbles you in the sense it's like, you know, you do your best shot, and sometimes it misses, sometimes it doesn't. So in terms of you being good at one thing or not good at another, or not having being very fractal but not being persuasive, that's just fine. Just showcase what you're interested in doing. You don't have to you just don't have to beat yourself up over anything.
You know, someone else that came to mind hearing you talk, Robert, is Nora Scully. She's very creative, very kind of designy, and does a lot of illustration work. But it's interesting how she uses that to help tell the story and guide people through the design sprint process. And she merges the two. And someone else who does a lot of that is Suzanne Childers. She does a lot of that with her mural boards and how she facilitates. You see a very illustrative elements in the boards to help guide the journey and provide inspiration. So those might be two people as well that might be inspirational or give you some different angles.
And I've included both of them in the chat as well, so that both their LinkedIn profiles. They've both been part of the GVDS in the past. Nora's just did some really interesting work with Femtech that she brought into the last event, and she's continuing to work with them at the same pace. So she introduced an entire organization to the design sprint process in the way that she had seen it, being a traditional facilitator. So yeah, Andy's suggestions are on point for sure. Andy, I want to ask you, with this particular event, you've been now 3 in a row. What are you expecting out of October? What would be ideal for you in terms of like when it's all said and done and we're past Halloween, getting into the holiday season? What would be a great end result for you?
So great end result. I'm very interested in the Dash. Sorry, I haven't been able to connect with you on that, but I'm very interested in seeing all the hard work that you put into refining that. I think that's very exciting. So kind of evolving my knowledge beyond the initial kind of design sprint formats we've been using, and really understanding the Dash and the value and how to drive value out of it. So I think getting that experience is big. And I've been reading and studying, the whole prototyping concepts, which are part of the Dash as I understand it. But I think there's so much strength in that equation, especially in the business world today. I really want to sharpen my skills around that and really experience it as deeply as I can in terms of pushing it and to the point where, I can see, understand either through failure or success, how to consistently deliver value in those methods. I think they're really, really strong.
Now, did you see the presentation, Mural, that I had sent out before, some of the artifacts and describing what the Dash is all about?
The last couple months are a bit of a blur for me. If I did, it's fuzzy. But I
bring it up because I could share it right now if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, so that at least it's in front of everyone and you can see it. So
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Bree. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, what I saw of what you posted, it kind of reminded me of the marketing simulation materials from like Marketing 1301 a little bit. Like, not the same, but it seemed like we simulated campaigns and stuff. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, and that it's basically testing what people react to. So it's like, in a way, it's like prototyping, but he calls it prototyping. So can everyone see what is the Dash on the screen? Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to go through this really super fast because I don't want to take up all the time, the last 7 minutes we have with me kind of babbling on. So the Dash basically, it came from actually the frustration I saw in the design sprint process with not being able to take what they had done and test it with the market, this pretty much goes straight to it. And this is all through Alberto Savoia and his work with prototyping that he's done for over a decade. I'll link to him. I'll put a link into the comments about that. But essentially it combines design thinking, which is going from empathize to testing, kind of like similar to the design sprint process, but it combines prototyping, which is a fast, cheap execution to see what the markets think of your idea. And I'll go down here. There's the Write It down here, the yellow book. And again, I'll link to him in his website. This is taken from the workshop that I had done for Mural. So a lot of this looks curated. That's because of it. There's 5 steps to it. You explore the opportunity on its face. Then you think of the audience that corresponds to the opportunity. Then you go into which market you think would actually work for it. And then you start generating some experiments to test to see if your opportunity makes sense, what assumptions actually are valid versus invalid. And then you kind of use some equations to figure out the results, like what particular exercises worked or experiments worked. And then what type of experiments would give you confidence to move forward with and try again in a different manner. There's no upfront work required for it, so it's something that doesn't involve a lot of research. In terms of which disciplines could be consulted in a dash, there was questions around where to engage at certain points, because this is a modular process. You get to strip out the opportunity in the audience if you already know it and you just want to test the market with experiments. You could start at part 3 here, rather than do the whole 5 sets. So it is customizable in that regard. The difference between doing a design sprint and a dash is that design sprints are good for informing the problem space. The dash process is used before a design sprint or a lean process occurs. So you're really just testing to see if people think it's a good idea or they want to buy it or invest in it. Then you can kind of expand on the design front in terms of where things go. And I'll expand out a little bit further. There's some things around the kind of team that's needed for a dash if you're a solopreneur all the way to an enterprise. Enterprise is pretty lead. It's just 2 people doing a lot of interviews through subject matter experts, and they themselves build the experiments to test in the market. So you don't need a full 5, 6, 7 people in the same room all the time. This can be run concurrently until somebody strikes something that looks like success, and then you bring more people into it. And I only have this thing right here because I wanted to, give gratitude to the people that consulted or at least helped work with me on this, where I showed them the original one and everyone was like, man, not really working. So I had to rewrite about 70 to 80% of what I had done based on their feedback. So I always showcase them whenever I do this workshop to say like, okay, this is going to be part of the artifacts I'll send you later. If you want to reach out to any of them, they're all very versed in what they do. Yasir was actually on the call, but I had to leave briefly. Graham is a wizard at being at process. He's come from some financial background. I could go all day on all these people, but most of them are from Gvds or have been at some type. But yeah, I can even link to this and put this in the chat as well. So if you want to check this out in your own time, you can. And I will stop the share for now, and then I'll just put the links in. So we only have a few minutes left. So Bree and Jan, I want to make sure that we cover any questions that you may have that we didn't answer today. So is there anything you want to ask either me or Andy before we end the session?
You mentioned this person in Germany who has a small shop. Who was it exactly?
Let me grab the name real fast. Her name's Sabrina Gorich. It's Goerlich. And okay. Let me, what happened to my window? Did I start it up? Oh, I have a dual monitor process and it's putting the windows in the wrong space. Go ahead and put her name in there. She's very active. She's a very highly social person, very well connected in Germany. I would say, and I've always maintained that she's kind of like the social hub in that area, and is highly influential with that process and being able to sell it. She's talked to all the major players in the design sprint field, and that's the link for her right there in the chat.
Okay, thanks.
Let me go ahead and also include the link to the Fred station I had. Okay, so sorry, I didn't mean to talk a bit. Did you have anything else, Jen, that you were going to ask?
No, no, that was it. Thanks for LinkedIn LinkedIn invite, Andy.
Yeah, you
Just
bet.
seen it.
Bree, anything else from your end?
So sorry I came in a little late. Andy, I know, I mean, I've seen your face, Robert, and working on all this through Slack, but Andy, are you guys, kind of partners in this, or are you just been doing it for a while and, okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm just a fan and a learner and hopefully a contributor of some sorts.
Cool.
Okay.
Do you have any tips
He downplays himself, but he's fairly central to a lot of the things. So whenever I see Andy signing up for like anything that related to GVDS, I'm like, okay, at least I've got one person that's like a titan when it comes to this stuff, and be like, okay, if for every reason I get hit by a bus, Andy could probably go, well, I'll pick up the pieces and see where I can go with things. But he's solid. He knows what he's doing with this stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, one quick question. Could we set up like a Slack channel or something for newbies? That's like a, getting advice from SMEs, VIPs, people who've been here and done that, or I don't know. I mean, I can obviously just reach out to people, but I'm wondering.
What would you call that? What would you expect that channel to be called? Would that be just called advice?
Maybe, yeah. Newbie advice.
Right.
Because I was about to ask, like, what advice would you give to a newbie, Andy, in this process?
So make sure you don't undercommit, but also don't overcommit yourself. Find balance, right? Because it's a team effort. On the flip side of that, give it within those constraints. Give it 110%. Go all in, right? I assure you, if you put the energy in, you will get out of it what you need. Be patient, trust the process. And I think Robert's refined this, continues to refine it. And I'm very anxious to see how communication unfolds. Communication historically has been a lot of it and a lot to consume. And I think he's got some strategies that will continue to help people figure out the pace and the rhythm of communication and how teams work. But that would be my advice. And get to know your teammates. Some may frustrate you, but just remember, everyone's there for a common goal. And even working with people that frustrate you can still be a very valuable learning experience. And so that would be my advice.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And to dovetail on that, especially on the team side, there is going to be that human factor where no matter what I see in the data, there may be the chances that you're going to have this one person that's kind of a dynamo when it comes to either conversation or like just a way of doing things, or they're silent or they don't turn on their camera. There's always that possibility. What I try to do is in these weeks leading up to October is that I give people enough exposure to other people. Like I know what Jen's all about now, and I met you. So I can kind of figure out who in that personality seems to kind of may click with someone else when I'm creating the teams. And after the teams are initially formed, there's going to be a mural where you can actually move around and shift yourself to certain people that you see. Like if you want to work with Ken Soto, then I have that in the back of my head when I'm kind of creating teams to see if your schedules align, and then try to make up something that's like a 4 to 6 person team that will reflect that. And during the course of the next couple of weeks, if you don't like the team or it's just not clicking with you, you can, in the mural, you'll be able to see who else is available, and you can kind of check their profiles out on LinkedIn. You can see some of the chats that they may have on Discord or some other places, and see what the vibe is on that team, and ask if you want to jump ship and go elsewhere. So there's a little bit of like maneuvering that happens in between now and say the very beginning of October. But the whole idea is that you're kind of syncing up with the people that you feel are the best kind of combination of the team, and trying to get personalities to align as well as with intent in terms of roles people want to play and the outcomes that they want. So it's a delicate dance, but as an organizer, I'd be open to the possibility that there may be like 1 or 2 people that are over in Australia or New Zealand that don't have anyone. They're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now because I don't have anybody else. Then I'm going to have to be that person that gets up at 5 a.m. that facilitates that particular design sprint and makes sure. Because I'm the last stop. I have to basically make sure that they have somebody that's going to help them experience what I intend with this event. And so there's always that. If worst comes to worst, I'll be the person that steps in and go, okay, let's grab all these people that are in Alaska or in Russia, and let's have a good time with this thing and walk them through a process. That's just part of it.
Cool. Would you recommend like sharing your strengths finder strengths beforehand? Like, would you, I don't know if everybody does that or not, but like
I'm big into strengths finder, so I can tell you what the top 5 I have right now if you want.
I mean,
but I can put it in there as well. It's like, I'll just basically ask the open-ended questions. So I know we're running out of time. Jen, did you have a quick question? Did you have to go? Because I saw you raise your hand before.
No,
I get into that.
just a question. How many people do you expect to participate?
So GVDS 4 was 172 people overall. And that was big because we were doing 4 or 5 straight weeks of design sprints. And that was like asking people to run a marathon in the desert. It was great the first like 2 weeks. And after that, people were like going, dude, I love design sprints, man, but I got to take a break. So I'll tell you that I'm perfectly comfortable in the 50 to 75 range would be perfect, because then you're talking about 10 to 12 teams of about 4 to 6 each, which is fantastic because it's the right balance between too few people and too many people to kind of get on one team. And there's expansion and contraction for both. So you go as low as 4, as big as 16. But I'm fine. To be honest with you, I'm perfectly fine with anywhere from like 50 to 70 to 80 people. And that should give you enough to kind of expand your network, see what else people are involved with. And there's going to be late arrivals like there usually is with every event, but that's what to expect.
Yeah, and most people do the work after their normal working hours, I suppose.
Correct. So the big change for GVDS 5 is that I'm trying to stick to 90 minutes of online time together per day, meaning that as a team, you make decisions or discuss particular work and you make it very, very focused, and that you don't have people stay on a call for 3 or 4 hours because you get Zoom fatigue. You're sick of looking at a monitor. It's kind of distracting. So it's just purposeful. And when you get together, the max is 2 hours, but I wouldn't go any further than that. But I try to keep it to 90 minutes, and then teach people how to do asynchronous work, how to basically engage so that you can do quick chats in WhatsApp. You can use all sorts of utilities now with it, whether it's in Mural or in Slack or anything else, whatever your medium is, so that you can have those discussions without texting back and forth with just 1 or 2 people and leave it at that, but it's on your own time. So when I form the teams, I'm looking at schedules and saying, this is when online you could be together at the same time based on what you've told me for that particular sprint week. Everything else is just going to be a negotiation with team members on when you should get together, but it should never be mandatory. Like, you have to be here. If I see somebody doing that, I got to go, well, maybe somebody has like kids that they need to take care of, or there's somebody with COVID in their household, which has happened back in May. You have to be sensitive to that and understand that not everyone's on the same wavelength. So
my negative test yesterday. I had a cold. I don't know if you can hear.
Slightly. So before I give you my 5 strengths, who's the small boy in the background I keep seeing that's kind of working on their own stuff?
Hey Jude, or it's Jude, my little buddy. Jude Park. He's 4. He's an autistic little guy. He hangs out by himself and puts all his dinosaurs in a row, and really cute.
Cool. Very cool.
I also have a dear Prudence too, my Lily Prudence. She's at school though. I'm sensing
a Beatles run through the whole thing. So
maybe a little bit,
just a slight one. Okay, really fast because I know everyone's got to go. So my top 5 are analytical. I'm an arranger. Let's see. Discipline is 3. I think. God, I'm forgetting them. But those are the top 3 I know. Relator is another one, and I want to say the 5th one is communication, but I'm not sure. I don't think that's right. But I know that 3 of them are execution, 2 of them are execution, 3 of them are quality assurance. And then everything like strengths 6 through 11 is all communication. So it makes sense that I'm a DJ. I'm doing these kinds of like things publicly. So yeah, and by the way, if you're looking for a strengths coach, I have a name that I can give you. She's absolutely amazing. She did like analyze the strengths of like over 100 employees within Sabre. And I think she's still there, but she has her own private practice. She's really, really good. Very intuitive with all of that stuff.
I have 4 strengths in the strategic and 1's activator. So I'm really good at starting stuff, but finishing stuff is not exactly a strength of mine. Discipline is my last strength.
Well, then that's when you partner with someone that actually can complement those strengths in terms of its strategic, who's the execution side of things, and where they kind of go from there. So that's usually whenever I was using the Strengths Finder, I would say, okay, which 2 or 3 people seem to kind of go together well. And one thing you could check out also, and I'm forgetting the name of it, it's there's an outfit actually in Dallas that takes Strengths Finder and uses it for teams. And I'll have to give it to you later. I'll have to, at some point, you just have to remind me, but I'll share that with you later on.
Cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I haven't used it in so long that I'm not forgetting. But anyway, before we leave, I know that we're over. Let's take one group shot before we head out so that we can actually like codify the fact that we were all together. Now, in the past, usually what we've done is props, but for these particular ones, I usually like to do facial expressions of how we're feeling today in terms of like what we're thinking of for like the weekend. So you don't necessarily need to like prop up something and hold up something you have right next to your screen. You can just basically make some sort of face that basically is something like, well, if I'm thoughtful, then go like this, or something to that effect. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So think about what kind of phrase of expression you would put in front of the camera, and then I'll take a quick snapshot, and then we'll use that as kind of like backdrop for the preview image that you'll see in YouTube when we kind of put this up later. All right, there you go. All right, everyone ready? Think you got it?
Wait, okay. No, gotta get my good side. Okay.
All right, the lighting's just right. Jen, you set? Okay, there you go. 1, 2, 3. Sarcastic. There you go. It was good to meet the both of you.
Yes.
I'm available on LinkedIn and also on Slack. I'll be working on like educational videos all throughout the weekend. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions outside of that. The advice questions channel is up, by the way, Bree. Cool. So if you want to go to Slack, it's up there. Just pepper that with whatever you got. If you are watching this on YouTube and unfortunately not Zoom because it broke, remember early bird is done after today. So after that, you better know people like Andy to get you in, or you may have the student discount or something else, but that's pretty much it. And we're going to be starting to get to business starting next week with teams and challenges and all sorts of fun stuff that's coming up. So thank you both for coming. Hope you all enjoy your weekend, and do a wave. Say goodbye.
Thank you, Y. Thank you.
All right.
Enjoy your